Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Monir El Azzouzi from easymedicaldevice.com, and today we will talk about AI Act. We talked a lot of time about AI Act previously, about what is this law, how it's working, etc., etc. But this time we try to share with you some successful, if I can say, implementation of the AI Act. And for that we have Carmen Bellebna from deepeye Medical. So Carmen, welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Hello, Monir. Thank you for the invitation and the possibility. Yeah.
Great, and thanks to you because, as I said, we have this AI act that everybody maybe is afraid of. So I hope
Exactly.
I hope we can explain the process and everything with many how deep iMedical went through it. But before that, maybe can we make just a small introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Carmen Bellebna. I'm working in the regulatory field since over 25 years. Not only in the AI field, of course, but in pharmaceutical, medical device. And since 2 years, I joined deepeye Medical. And yeah, we are producing or developing AI models in the field of retinal diseases, mainly clinical decision support tools for the treatment planning of any retinal diseases.
So,
Yeah.
as usual introduction, as a general introduction for this kind of episode, I know that a lot of people know maybe what is AI Act, but for those that don't know, can we make a summary of what is AI Act?
Yeah, sure. The AI Act is actually, to put it in a nutshell, the overall goal of the AI Act is to protect the fundamental rights in democracy. So this is really the aim because, of course, there are some risks now with the AI technology and the AI models that has been identified or recognized not only by the EU Commission but from all other, as you remember, Sam Altman even said there is a possible risk, and also Elon Musk even said that. So the EU has taken measures and has published this AI Act, which is about the fundamental rights and the democracy. And this is what I found really amazing, because it's other than the MDR, which is focused more on the product and also of patient safety, of course, but not on the fundamental rights and democracy and anti-discrimination. And the EU specifically enforces from the AI to place trustworthy AI on the EU market. This is what it's all about. So to put it in a nutshell, and based on this trustworthy AI, which of course everybody wants to have, everybody wants to have a trustworthy AI which acts non-discriminating and so on. And the EU has published actually 7 trustworthy or ethic guidelines that are to be understood as kind of essential requirement of AI. So this is the equivalent maybe to the GSPR of the MDR. In the EU Act, you have main 7 ethical principle which needs to be followed. So, for example, the human oversight is one of aspect of this ethical guideline. Then the technical robustness and the safety, to which also cybersecurity belongs, and general safety aspects, the privacy and data governance, the transparency, the diversity and fairness, which has to do with non-discrimination, and the social and environmental well-being, which is also really notable. This is also something new, and also the accountability. And this goes along with the responsibility of a AI provider to identify actually risks and to provide transparency and measures so that third party can follow and so on. So this is indirectly all included in all these fundamental rights and democracy and anti-discrimination. So to put it in a nutshell, this is what it's all about.
And in the small piece there, medical device is also there. So there is a big thing, but medical device is
Exactly,
also one piece of it here.
exactly. In the EU AI Act, the medical device are mentioned in so far as there is a reference to an Annex 1 in the EU AI Act, which references all the other regulations, or let's say devices that are regulated by other jurisdiction. And yeah, so there is the link. Actually, the MDR is listed there, the IVDR is listed there, and and yeah. So
So, as we said, so Deep Eye Medical, you went through this, you implemented that. Before to talk mainly about how you did that, can you again explain your product? What is it doing exactly, so that we understand exactly why AI there and why people, I mean, what
Yeah,
its
so
device is going to do.
our device is mainly made for ophthalmologists, and our device is a kind of app. It's not an app, actually, it's an icon that is introduced in a PAC system. And the users, they can introduce their OCT images that have been retrieved from the patient. They put it in our AI model, so in our icon or on our tool, and the AI model processes these images and give as an output a kind of clinical decision support. Like this patient has a high degree of disease activity levels and needs to be injected now. It's actually for age-related macular degeneration. And the second output is the long-term treatment planning, because in age-related macular degeneration is not that easy. It's always tricky to find the right therapy plan for the patient, because each patient is different in the response of this injection therapy. And yeah, so this is mainly our device, and it's also sustained by some explainability images to provide to the user or to the doctor some background information on why does the device shows this output, yeah, to have a little bit of explainability, which is also required from an AI model, yeah, to have a certain degree of explainability, to be transparent, yeah.
Unearth the pulse of the medtech world with MedTech Conf, a dynamic platform featuring global events on medical devices, biologicals, IVD, and pharmaceuticals. Stay informed, stay ahead, connect, share, and elevate your knowledge. Become an official sponsor. Make your event shine on the map. MedTech Conf, your key to the medtech universe. Remember, the future is now, and it's at your fingertips with MedTech Conf.
And so mainly to implement this kind of tool, you are using a lot of clinical data, a lot of images from patients that
Exactly.
are
There were
training then your model there.
Exactly. We have a bunch of OCT images from which they have been labeled by experts. So we are working together with the Minster portal. This is an eye hospital, and they have really some dedicated specialist which has annotated those images to define which patient has this high or low responder.
Okay, so now, now the AI Act comes into force. You have to implement that. So first, maybe for people, just as a global comment, was it a good experience or it was a nightmare for you?
Actually, it was not a nightmare at all. It was challenging, of course. Especially, I was following the EU AI Act when it was already in the draft published. I already read some passage and also reviewed some articles and so on, and watched some webinars about it. And actually, it's not that tragic. I mean, of course, the EU AI Act is almost constructed like the MDR. So it has at first, it has the recitals. So the recitals are mainly the reasons for many reasons. The EU AI Act has 180 reasons or recitals. And then you have a chapter with chapter 1, 2, and 3 with all the articles, like the MDR has. And then you have the annexes. And you have to consider that the EU AI Act is not only made for medical device, it's made for all types of AI systems, and the medical device play a role in it. But due to the fact that the medical devices are regulated already by the MDR, the EU AI Act has taken this into account. And so there's only a small part, not a small part, I say, but maybe it's not a nightmare. It's just maybe a bunch of requirement that needs to be considered for you in addition to what you already have. For example, a good example is the technical documentation. Here, the EU AI clearly says in one of its recitals, when you have a technical documentation according to the MDR or IVDR, then you don't need to do anything in addition. That's completely sufficient. So this is actually good, yeah. And what is also challenging, maybe not only for manufacturers, but for deployers. This is also something notable and something new, which is not covered in the MDR, is the fact that the EU AI Act is also applicable for deployers, which means for the users. They really have some obligations they need to fulfill. Yeah? For example,
Deployers means you are the manufacturer of the device and you have some companies that are deploying this device within
exactly. For
some
example,
companies.
our users, the ophthalmologists or the hospitals that use our device are deployers, and hence they fall under the EU AI Act. They need to have this obligation, and many users they are not aware of this. Yeah, because under the MDR, the MDR does not address any obligations to users. Yeah,
Exactly.
but the EU AI Act indeed has or have some obligations to deployers. It's really interesting. Yeah, that's why I found this EU AI Act really interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So we talked about technical documentation that you maybe have nothing to do, but there is also quality management system, labeling, etc. So is there anything else you have to do on your QMS, for example, or anything that you have done for the labels to share maybe on the label that this contains AI or whatever? So do you have some obligations like that?
Yeah, sure. You need this is goes all along with transparency requirements. Yeah, so your device needs to be transparent in this way that the user is always aware that this is an AI, and an AI can make mistakes. I mean, this is the same when you use ChatGPT. There's always also a hint this can make errors or it's not perfect.
Or contact a lawyer. Don't trust what we are saying. Contact lawyers, etc.
No, not in that extent, but that the user is aware. Okay, this is based on an AI. Yeah,
okay.
That's it actually. Yeah.
But for quality management system, so we have the ISO 13485 that we have to follow. Did you have to change some of your procedures or update them, or do you advise some specific procedure to be created specifically for the AI Act?
Yeah, so in first step, we updated our SOP for software lifecycle according to the usual standard, the 62304 exactly. And we addressed also that we have some additional documentation needs for the AI model specifically. And later on, we created a new SOP for AI lifecycle, because it was needed, because the life cycle of an AI model is different than this of maybe in the software as described in the usual ISO standard. So we created a new SOP for AI lifecycle to describe all the steps like annotation, pre-processing, training, testing, validation, and so on. And for all these steps, we have defined a little bit more information about it. And also the data governance and data management, which is really of highly interest, also from notified bodies perspective, that this is needed in the quality management system to have such a procedure in place. And also, of course, all the description of the annotation process and so on. So this is what's the first step, what we have done at first glance without doing anything else, but just to check this. And later on, when there were some ISO standards that has been published related to that, we started also to update the SOP for data analysis. Yeah, so we didn't really create new SOPs for that. Actually, the SOPs that are required as per 13485 standards are already there. You just need to expand them. For example, this data analysis, we expanded the SOP in terms of to define how is the accuracy calculated, how is the sensitivity calculated, and the specificity and the die score and all these quality metrics that are also defined in the ISO standard. This helped us really a lot, that we had this ISO standards that were already published later on, so that we included them also as per definition, so that everybody in the company knows, okay, the definition of accuracy is that and not something else. Because at the very beginning, we realized that there were some different meaning, we use different terms for the same thing. And this was sometimes really confusing. And then we were really lucky that we had then the standard was published about the definition of what means what. So we have a unique definition so everybody understands. So this was really helpful. And then the second step,
I mean, as you mentioned here, like there are some specific terms or whatever. So, did you had also a round maybe of training of your team about all that? Because I suppose that if I am quite your regulatory affairs person and I am hired for the first time to this kind of company, have no clue maybe what is AI, no clue maybe what we are talking about sensitivity or calculation or method or whatever. So was there a round of training also for the teams?
Yeah, there was a round of training, and I have to say that these terms of sensitivity, accuracy, that they are not new to the people who are working really on the AI model. So they are data scientists, and they have a degree also. Some have a PhD,
Yeah,
and
I suppose it's more for the other people than the data scientists. So,
for the older
for
people.
example, you as maybe a regulatory person, you have to talk to a notified body, to auditor that asks answering questions, etc. So you have to show them also that you understand this kind of thing here.
Yeah, of course. I mean, me as a regulatory person, I need to train myself. Yeah, I need to be able to do that or to participate in some webinars. For example, last year I participated in the RUPS convergence in Berlin, and I have attended a supplementary workshop. This was held by TUV and BSI. This was a really one-day workshop on AI Act and technical documentation, and this was actually really good. So actually I took this knowledge immediately and did a training on that, because it was really also a good aha effect. Okay, what notified bodies are expecting actually. Yeah. So it was really good. So this is the kind of transfer learning that we did. Of course, our data scientists, they know all about the techniques. Yeah, they are familiar with it, but actually how to document this and what is the expectation of notified bodies. So this training was really helpful. Yeah.
Okay, so anything else that you had to implement or anything else that maybe was
Yeah, a
surprising
little bit
or
later on. I mean, this is also required by the ISO standard, by the 13485, that you define your role. Yeah. For
okay?
example, according to MDR, you are a manufacturer according to Article
Yeah.
2.30. And the same you do, or we did with the EU AI Act. We said we are manufacturer according to Article blah, blah, blah in MDR. And for EU AI Act, we are AI provider. We defined our role, and based on the definition of our role, we have some regulatory requirements to consider from the EU AI Act, and we extracted them. Maybe here I can give some useful links. On one hand, there's the TÜV Süd AI Lab, which provides on their homepage a kind of risk monitor called. There you can select what are you, AI provider, what are you doing, and then at the end there's a summary of what kind of chapters and articles you
Okay.
need to fulfill. The same is provided by Future of Life. This is a non-profit think tank organization. They have also provided this kind of questionnaire. So at the end, also for deployers, yeah, you can say I'm a deployer. I do that, I use that, and then after that you have a summary of what kind of articles are applicable for you. I found this really useful. I wish it would be applicable also for MDR, or someone did this for the MDR.
I can
And
imagine. But here, when you say, for example, for a deployer, so as we said before, a user that one of your customer that is a user can be a deployer. Are you informing them or are you warning them that, oh, be careful if you are using our tool, you are a deployer, so you have to fulfill some requirements of EMDR. Here is the link if you want to check, etc., etc. Or
yeah, actually, we have to do that. We have to inform our doctors or our users, because what we have figured out as well is that the medical associations and also the healthcare associations here in Germany, they have set out rules, also ethical rules for the use of AI in parallel to the EU AI Act, without knowing that the EU AI Act has already addressed this. So they have completely made the same like transparency and also the bias and fairness thing and all these things, and maybe on top also a little bit more requirements they placed. Yeah, for example, the information to the patient. Yeah, which actually the EU AI Act does not really require that you use that you inform your patients about the use of the AI. This is really interesting. But the medical association, they said no, we need to have a certain transparency in front of, they have also maybe other obligations in front of the patients in terms of transparency. Of course, you need to inform the patient about any therapy decision and so on. But they say, okay, they want also to inform their patient about the use of AI. But okay, I see it a little bit differently because it depends on the patient population, of course. Yeah, when you have really elderly people, like 80, 90 years olds, maybe they refuse then the therapy. They think, oh no, I'm afraid of AI. Yeah, so
So
it's a little.
in terms of this, so mainly it means also that if I am located in France and I have my tool, AI tool in France, and I'm deploying that in Germany, even if I am EU MDR certified, I'm following AI Act, etc., there is still the local legislation to follow in that case, correct? Or it's really something that is different?
No, actually, the EU AI Act is applicable within the EU.
Yeah,
There
but
is
you
no.
said about Germany, they had added some.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm not familiar with the medical association in France or in any other country, and this is also something which I was thinking about. Like, okay, now every country is creating maybe their own. Actually, they don't create requirements; it's only a kind of guidance. Yeah,
Okay,
because
it's
their
not a
medical
law. Yes,
association are not regulators, so it's a kind of within the association, like they set internal rules for themselves. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. In terms of guidances, you talked before about guidances. So we heard about some also German guidances, like the Team NB paper, the German guidances. So do you have experience with those kind of documents?
Yeah, I have experience with those kind of documents because this document is not so new. It has been published by the end of 2024, but actually, initially, it was created by the Jona Institute in collaboration with TÜV Süd. I know that because it has been published in early stage already. These are really a bunch of super many questions. And at first, it was the German Notified Body Association, which made this document public through the internet. And later on, it was on EU level, then the Team NB, which has published this. And it has not been really changed notable. We used this 1.5 years ago to do an internal audit in terms of design and development. And we found out that really the type of questions were really broad, yeah, and were not that helpful. Some question nobody really knew what is really meant by this, so it was not so easy to overcome these questions. And now I have to say, related to the fact that other ISO standards has been published under the EU AI Act, which are to be harmonized for future, that are already public now. We have purchased them or organized them somehow, partially from a university, which are freely available, at least here in Germany. I don't know in other countries. I found out that these standards are much more helpful than this Team NB questionnaire, because some questions are really like out of the blue, yeah, without any like what is meant, yeah. So this questionnaire is mainly interesting when you want to prepare for an audit, to get familiar maybe with the type of questions the auditor asks, but the type of questions are really not. They are too general. They are not really helpful because everybody, I'm sure, also each data scientist, when he's sitting in the audit and these kind of questions come, is like, what? What do you mean? So yeah, it's a little bit like you take an ISO, the 13485, and just read the requirement and then ask exactly this question. Yeah, maybe the ISO standard is even more detailed than this. And on the other hand, the disadvantage of this Team NB questionnaire, it becomes old. Why? Because they don't reference, so far they reference standards that are used under the MDR, but they don't have the link to the current ISO standards that have been published under the EU AI Act, which are really much more helpful. So this is the disadvantage of this NB questionnaire. But for audit preparation, I will use it definitely just to be prepared about the type of questions.
Think out of the box and maybe get surprised also by some questions.
Yeah, exactly.
When you say standards are already published under AI Act, so which standard are we talking about, and what is the content of the standard mainly?
Yeah, so actually there is one standard. This is the 22989. I don't know, I don't want to borrow you with the numbers, but actually this is the standard where it focuses on concepts and terminology. This is really interesting because AI lifecycle is displayed there, and all the terminology and all the types of metrics that are used for AI models, although the different types of models that exist, like frozen models, self-learning, blah, 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 all these things. This is really useful. And then you have this 529 series, 1 to 5. They are talking about data quality or fairness and bias, what are bias, and so on. So this is also really important, useful ISO standards to have in place when you are a manufacturer of AI, definitely.
And do you know if notified bodies are starting to ask those standards if you are an AI company or?
Yeah, we actually, our notified body unfortunately does not inform us about what they are expecting right now. But
Okay.
I know from other competitors or other manufacturers or other startups that work with, for example, TÜV Süd, they have already provided to their customers already an informative email which standards are to be expected to be in place. And this is really helpful because the EU AI Act, they have a bunch of standards that are going to be harmonized in future. They are already public, yes, but they are not harmonized yet or not issued under the harmonized homepage of the EU Commission. So yeah, and you cannot read them all or implement them all at once. Yeah, you need to you need to prioritize. And for me, this was really helpful. So I gained the information from a colleague from another company who has retrieved this information, and I said, okay, maybe I also to start to focus on those ISO standards because yeah, but in this case, really, I would wish that all the notified bodies would be on the same level because I consider them as the extended arm of competent authorities, right? And they should act all the same. So it's a kind of unfairness. Yeah, we talk about in the EU Act a lot of fairness, but the human fairness, it's even worse than what is expected from an AI model.
I can imagine. And here, as we talk about notified bodies, so usually they come and give you a CE certificate. Do you get also from there an AI Act certificate, or how is it working? Hey, just a second. Do you need a EU, Swiss, or UK representative? Then choose Easy Medical Device. We can represent you and also become your importer. Contact us at eo@easymedicaldevice.com.
No, this is also has been considered by the EU AI Act is that if you have a conformity assessment procedure or a notified body that does the conformity assessment procedure according to MDR, you don't need an additional CE mark. Yeah, so this is really a good thing that has been pointed out by the EU AI Act.
Okay,
This is explicitly defined there. Yeah.
so you get just one certificate, no need to go through with
Just one gets
multiple.
a certificate, and the notified body needs to be ready for also being able to do technical file assessment on that. And I have heard that, for example, there's a new association or a new group like I mentioned before, TÜV Süd AI Lab. So this is also kind of non-profit organization that helps all the TÜV Süd group, not only TÜV Süd, but TÜV Nord, TÜV Rheinland, or whatever, to set up test standard for the technical documentation, yeah, to establish standards in order to evaluate the technical documentation. So this is mainly made for auditors or for technical documentation assessors. This is also interesting, yeah.
Yeah, TUV, TUEV dash LAB dot
Yeah,
AI. I think it's that.
TÜV AI Lab. Yeah, I also put it on the link so
Okay.
that there you can navigate a little bit. They have also a kind of navigator where what I told you about the risk navigator, where you can click some applicable your role and so on, and then at the end, as an output, you will receive the applicable standard, the applicable articles and
Exactly.
yeah.
So just before on the definitions, you talked about the models, the frozen model and the self-learning model. So your model is a frozen model or self-learning?
No, it's a frozen model. So the model cannot learn from the field. It doesn't take the images and then learn again because the images prior were annotated, yeah, by experts. So clearly annotated, and based on that, the model was trained. And then after the training, when the scores were on the quality metrics were good, then this model was frozen. So it doesn't matter when you put every time the same images, it will always receive the same output, always. Yeah, and a self-learning model will not. They will always be a little bit different. And currently on the market, I haven't heard about such a model that exists. It's a little bit tricky because then you have a certain range of changes. So your metric might change also, your quality matrix, and you don't know how. And this is what needs to be validated. Yeah, you have a certain degree of variances, and you have to validate this, and you have to make sure that during the learning on the field that this range does not exceed. Yeah. So it's a little bit tricky. So this is in Europe. I have never heard of such. The US has established a guidance on that that really clearly address this, that you have to validate the range. But I don't, for me, myself, I don't have really experience on self-learning regulatory models.
If tomorrow you want to go on that route, there is nothing that blocks us to do that.
No, it's not prohibited. You can use self-learning models. It's also in scope of the EU AI Act and also is not contradictory to MDR. So there's a definition what means AI system. The EU has published recently this year not a clear definition actually, but a really long definition. It's a guidance on the definition of the AI system. It's really also notable and interesting because they did it on purpose to leave it quite open because they don't want to block innovation and so on. So they just said, okay, it's not only a neuronal network that is an AI system, it can also be an expert system or decision tree, as long it infers from, or it can conclude from input, it can do a conclusion by its own. So a certain degree of autonomy must be there. And what is also really interesting on the definition of AI system is that it's not only an EU thing, it's an international thing. Because when you read the EU AI Act, the definition of AI system, there is a corresponding recital, or what I told you initially, that there are some recitals to understand better the articles. And one recital says that the AI system should be along with international guidelines.
Okay.
And there's also a publication on the EU Commission homepage which states that the OECD members, they all rely on the same definition of AI to which also US belongs, or Canada and Australia, so the whole world mainly. And this is really interesting because this is also helpful for international market, so that not each country has its own definition of what is an AI system, but the whole world should have the same definition of what is AI system. This is also something which is different to MDR, is in terms of EU level, is that the EU AI Act enables a little bit the international or opens the international access on this.
Okay.
So you don't have, this is really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have some, if I can say, as you were passing through all this experience and it was not a nightmare, but it was challenging. So is there some lesson learned that maybe can benefit from people? So I learned this on doing this process, and you share that with people so that they are also, not making maybe the same mistakes or gaining some time on implementing.
Yeah. So what is really important is when you develop a new model, really from scratch, from the beginning, you should really, when you select your data, on one hand, really to already classify the quality matrix, or maybe not the quality matrix, but maybe the features. For example, you have a data set of images, let's say, and they come all from different patients, like from male, female, from different age population, and so on. And all these statistics of population, of course, you don't always have the same amount of 50% female, 50% male, and so on. It's sometimes not possible. And sometimes it's also not important, to have this, because it won't cause any bias for this. And this is very also important to define this at the very beginning. And you have to collaborate with doctors, of course, because they have the knowledge. They say, oh no, okay, for this indication or for this disease, the age is really not important. So it's not important to have 50% of male, 50% of female, just as an example. To do this at the very first beginning, to define this, it makes also the life easier for transparency purposes, and also to explain this to notified bodies, because they come always with a question like, why do you have only 30% of female and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, where is the risk? So you have it already, then you can say, hey, here is it. Yeah, we already consider it at the early beginning. And the other thing is that when you have initially phrased your intended purpose, to include at early stage also a medical writer. Why? To do a literature review, based on certain keywords. Why this is important? Because based on the literature review, you already might have some relevant quality metrics that you need to fulfill, or you can maybe also figure out some safety parameters or some endpoints that later on might be relevant also for the clinical evaluation. And of course, I mean, the best person to do that is a medical writer who is familiar with the MDR and with all these literature review techniques. I'm not familiar with that. So that's why we have a medical writer, for an external person who does this. And this is really important to have this at also very first step after the phrasing of the intended purpose. And then the next step would be that those literature that have been retrieved and all these metrics and parameters that have been defined in those literature, maybe also to discuss this with the AI team, with the data scientists and with the data engineers, so that they also get familiar when they do the training, because it's important to know about, okay, what should be the outcome of what we should focus on, what are the safety parameters, so that it makes the life much more easier. And this is something that we have learned from our initial development of product.
Okay, no, it's great. So I think as usual, clinical data is gold. I think it's something that you have to be gathering preciously and really have a great care, because notified bodies are really looking at that, and this is mainly what is used for your AI model. So it's something that is training and helping and to understand how the model is working, or if it is working correctly or not. Okay, so anything else that you want to share, or any other topic?
No, maybe just one last thing, which I found really helpful, is that for the EU AI Act, there are a provider, so a non-profit organization, think tank organization, Future of Life, which really provide a really useful web page where you can easily navigate through the EU AI Act, because when you open an article, then you have the link to the corresponding recital, so that it makes the understanding of the article much more easier. And because you have 180 recitals, it's not possible to read them like a book. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, because each of them is linked to something else. So it's not like you read and it's like a story. No, it's each of them is it's like a note for an article.
Exactly. And especially in the EU AI Act itself, in the official text from the EU Commission, there is no link in between the recitals and the articles. But on this homepage, this is also on the link. It's called the WWW Artificial Intelligence EU Act.de or I don't know, but it's on the link. And this is also really helpful for navigation. Just a useful tip.
Anyway, so I will put all your links on the show notes. So that people can get to that. But yeah, as you've said, so conclusion, it was okay. All this process that you went through was really okay.
Yeah, it was really, I can say, don't be afraid of the EU AI Act. For medical device manufacturer, it's manageable. It's nothing that you have to create out of the blue. Yeah, all the fundamental rights and anti-discrimination, it's all put in the AI models about bias, fairness, how to overcome this. It's really clearly defined in ISO standard, what means what. So it's a bunch of work. This is no doubt about it. It's, I mean, imagine you have to do all the gap analysis for each ISO standard to figure out what is applicable for you. This is really a lot of work, yeah.
But it's not. It's if you follow the process, it's not so difficult.
Yeah, it's nothing that is completely new. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then I hope it helped people to implement then their AI model or follow the AI Act for that. Because yeah, as you said, we had some episodes talking about what is AI Act, how it's working, etc. We had also the conference about that. Now it's more about return of experience from people. So to say, it's fine. It's not. You have to work, but it's completely fine. Great. So really, thank you, Carmen. It was really a pleasure to have you. As I said, I will put all your details also on the show notes for people maybe to contact you. Also, maybe if you have any question about that, maybe there are some specific cases that they want maybe to discuss, so yeah, they can directly contact you. And yeah, we'll put also all the links on the show notes for all the what we discussed today, so that that if anybody has to look at this, they can just go and click on it. Okay, Carmen, it was really a pleasure. Thank you very much, and I wish you a nice day.
Thank you very much.